my way.
But DV!
You may dispense with the pleasantries. Let's get to it. You left me behind. I'm shocked.
DV, I never said I'm moving, giving you up.
Do you know how far I've had to travel?
12 parsecs?
Light years. All because one morning you've up and gone into the blue.
What do I have to do to get the message through? It was an accident. I can't step back in time and change what happened.
Put yourself in my place. Just for once, come into my world.
Okay, fine. Confide in me. If you hate me so much, why bother coming back?
Better the devil you know.
I'm genuinely sorry you were left behind. It won't happen again.
Put your hand on your heart and tell me it's all over. I won't believe it till you do.
Isn't my word good enough?
I am altering the deal. Do you refuse?
Yes, you're being ridiculous. I wouldn't change a thing.
Do you dare? It's never too late to change your mind.
He'll shut up soon. Won't be long now. Breathe.
You're messing with a time bomb, and I might explode.
I should be so lucky.
Sensitized by every word that you say.
You gonna keep spinning around with this song and dance for a little while longer?
What do you mean?
Because I just got a call. Your disco needs you.
This is not a toy.
Just the corners of your mind. Retroblasting. The stuff you love since you were 9. We're blasting into the past to see what thrills still last. Retroblasting.
When Kenner received the Star Wars license in 1977, they weren't in the action figure business as we know it today. Much like Hasbro had done with their original G.I. Joe, Kenner was making toys at a larger scale, most notably the $6 million Man and Bionic Woman, done in the 12-inch doll size. The designers at Kenner made the figures 3 3/4 inches tall, because they realized that Star Wars was a toy line based just as much on vehicles as it was on characters, and so they had to be smaller. But Kenner didn't stray completely from its success with Lee Majors. A line of 12-inch Star Wars dolls were made as well, but by 1980 it was clear the action figures were the best investment, and so the larger size figures were canceled just as The Empire Strikes Back landed in theaters.
I can't believe you're making me do this.
But the pendulum of scale wasn't done swinging at Kenner's offices. In 1982, they decided to launch another line of toys, one that was even smaller than their insanely successful action figures, the Micro Collection. Whether this was because of the massive Battle of Hoth in The Empire Strikes Back, or a desire to sell more complex playsets and appeal to a different kind of toy collector, Kenner went diecast, and the result was both amazing and totally frustrating. The idea behind the line seems to have been greater scale possibilities for the settings, so the figures themselves were barely an inch tall in most cases, made of solid die-cast metal and painted. On a scale of 1 to 10, this puts the novelty of the Micro Collection at 50, but the limitations of the medium are obvious and immediate. The figures don't move. The poses they have are the poses you get. Some of them work pretty well, pointing their blasters or attacking with lightsabers. A lot of them, though, don't have action-oriented poses at all. Han Solo seems to be taking a crap while wagging his blaster like he's swing dancing. Luke's blaster is pointed slightly too high. Lando's blaster is hanging limply downward. Boba Fett is at parade rest. Lobot is flamboyantly pointing, and it's so ridiculous, I'm certain the Micro Collection inspired the famous Robot Chicken sketch. Some of the characters were supposed to be posed as if they were wounded, but it didn't always track. This stormtrooper, for example, is supposed to be getting hit, but it looks like he's breaking up an argument. Those were the droids we were looking for, Dave. Whoa, guys, calm down. Or this snowtrooper that is supposed to be taking a blast to the chest. However, at a glance... Hey, Larry, I heard a good one. Yeah? What do you call a snowtrooper's girlfriend? I don't know. A skirt chaser. The paint on the figurines chips easily. If you played with them with any regularity, they probably ended up pretty battered. There was no avoiding it. Because they were so small, they were grouped with vehicles and playsets much like Lego minifigures. If you wanted certain characters, you had to find specific playsets. The majority of the Micro Collection focuses on The Empire Strikes Back, and with good reason. The scale of the Hoth battle really warrants a bigger scope. The Hoth World playsets from the Micro Collection give us the edifice of Echo Base with the ion cannon, and a series of great mechanical gimmicks like the shield doors of the base that can open and close with the raising of a guard turret. The playsets connected together, which added to their appeal. For example, your Wampa Cave wouldn't always be standalone if you had the ion cannon to attach it to, or the generator attack playset, or the turret defense playset. And as I said, which ones you had determined which characters you received. If you wanted Luke on a Tauntaun, you needed turret defense. If you wanted Han Solo on a Tauntaun, you had to get the ion cannon set. If you wanted Han pointing his blaster, you had the option of turret defense, or if you wanted him in ultra crouch, Wampa Cave. The way Kenner told them apart was through little descriptions that were usually pretty on point, like Luke in Stormtrooper disguise. But if the figures were really similar, like variations of the same character, it could get a little confusing. The Han with Wampa Cave is called Han Solo Firing, while the Han Solo with Turret Defense is called Han Solo Stalking. Stalking what? The only thing he ever stalked in the film was the probe droid. Seems like Stalker Han should have been with the Wampa Cave and Shooting Han put with Turret Defense. Kenner also loved Darth Vader pointing for some reason, and did a lot of variations on this pose. Vader pointing, Vader beckoning, Vader using the Force. When Vader puts his hands on his hips, he's Vader in command. And Vader doesn't walk. Apparently, he struts. Yes, Kenner gave us Vader strutting.
I'm gonna get the sucker. Dirty mother. Don't you say that.
The playsets each had special gimmicks to up the ante. The shield generator exploded, or if the rebels successfully defended themselves, the ATST included with the set could be toppled and destroyed. The turrets blew up. Wanton destruction was a big theme of the Micro Collection. It's like the designers at Kenner weren't content with just the battle damage stickers, they wanted to wreck some stuff, and the Micro Collection was their outlet. The vehicles were the best example of this. The X-Wing and TIE Fighter each had push-button simulated damage controls. The best part for me as a kid was the pieces didn't separate from the toy, so you didn't lose anything, and as soon as you let go of the button, the vehicle repairs itself. For the most part. The Micro Collection was also your only option for a major location in Star Wars, Bespin. Unlike Kenner's sole flimsy playset for the basic figures, the Micro Collection went all in on Cloud City with 3 interlocking playsets: the freeze chamber, the control room, and the gantry. These Bespin playsets really show off the strong points of the Micro Collection, where most of the basic figure playsets might have had 1 or 2 mechanisms, like a door or an elevator. The Micro Collection was filled to the brim with gizmos. The freeze chamber, which was the core of the Bespin World sets, had sliding doors, adjustable ramps, an elevator, and the piece de resistance, the freeze chamber trick. The mechanism was essentially a plastic propeller hidden under the main floor. On one prop of the propeller was a tab for Han Solo. On the other prop was a slot for the Carbonite figure. The handle rod was hidden amongst the various greeblies atop the playset. You'd lower the handle, which lowered the figures. Then you'd turn the handle 180 degrees and pull the assembly back up. Han Solo would disappear and the Carbonite would replace him. It was a really cool trick. But it totally sucked that the only figurine of Boba Fett in the entire Micro Collection just stood there cradling his rifle. The fun didn't stop there. The additional sets, the control room and the gantry, were also based on locations from the final duel in The Empire Strikes Back. The control room had the ability to throw Luke through the big window, and the gantry was the bridge out to the wind vane where Luke loses his hand. It even came with a little handless Luke figure. But what made the sets all the more interesting was Kenner gave them the ability to fit together in multiple ways. You could reconfigure the sets and put them together in a linear fashion or a random fashion. You could even make a staircase to nowhere if you wanted to. I loved these sets because of my fascination with Bespin, even if the fighting Luke and Vader were in fencing poses with the lightsabers.
You're using Bonetti's defense against me, huh?
The sets were so cool, it led to a lot of frustration that they weren't scaled to the standard figures, because that's what I really wanted, and that was a major letdown. I had the standard X-Wing, but I had the Micro TIE Fighter. I could dogfight with them, but it wasn't terribly authentic. I only ended up with the TIE Fighter, the freeze chamber, and the control room. I had fun with them, but I always wished they'd been bigger. Kenner offered the Bespin sets individually and as a massive Bespin World set. They did this with their Hoth sets too, as well as another world that was a surprising revisit, Death Star World. Sold together or separately as the Compactor and the Escape playsets, the Death Star playsets were, like Bespin, an intricate, amazing recreation of the Death Star from the original film, and the end result really puts the bigger Kenner playset to shame. The big blast door that Vader and Kenobi fought in front of was spring-loaded, and it closed with a bang. You had 3 levels of play that included the turbo laser, which exploded, the extending bridge with swing rope, the detention block hallway with a hatch into the compactor, and yes, the compactor had foam debris, a moving wall, and an escape door. There were 2 working elevators, and a rather flimsy tractor beam control extension that clipped to the playset. Like Bespin, the 2 playsets were modular and could be reconfigured multiple ways. 2 of the coolest items in the Micro Collection were department store exclusives, which meant most of us never knew they existed. One was the Snowspeeder. Like the X-Wing, the Snowspeeder had a battle damage feature, and it showed the limitations of the metal figurines that were only partly successful at being both freestanding characters as well as convincing pilots. Dak is fully kneeling in the back seat of that Snowspeeder. It's weird. The cockpit has to be so big, it's more like a greenhouse. Where this limitation is the worst just happens to be the best toy in the Micro line, and arguably one of the best toys in the entire Kenner Star Wars series, the Micro Millennium Falcon. Unlike the bigger Falcon, which was based off the original film, this Falcon was inspired by The Empire Strikes Back. It came with the only micro figurines depicting R2, 3PO, and Han in his blue jacket. It also came with Chewbacca, Lando, and Luke. This Falcon had direct access to the cockpit from the back, but only Han in that weird crouch could fit in there. This Falcon had the entry ramp and the gunner chair, the latter of which was a little bird cage rather than an actual seat. How else would a figurine fit into it? The Micro Falcon is also the only vintage Falcon to actually have both the upper and lower cannons. The standard Falcon and the diecast Falcon only have the upper cannon. But what I think makes the Micro Falcon so unequivocally cool is the inclusion of the rescue hatch used by Lando at the climax of The Empire Strikes Back. It pops up and the Lando figurine is ready and designed to support the Luke Skywalker figure and bring him back down into the ship. Just take note that the lower push panel for the rescue hatch is often missing on loose examples. And true to Kenner form, the Micro Collection also had a mail-away offer, in which you'd use those precious proofs of purchase. Called Build Your Armies, it was an offer to get 6 Hoth troopers, 3 rebels, and 3 stormtroopers. Kenner had plans to expand the Micro Collection even more into 1983 with the release of Return of the Jedi. They had plans for a Bacta tank playset for the Hoth world, an entire Dagobah world with the swamp and Yoda's house, as well as Jabba's palace and playsets for the second Death Star. But it wasn't to be. If you were like me, you probably got most of your Micro Collection on clearance. As with the 12-inch dolls from a few years before, the Micro idea just didn't catch on. The die had been cast, and diecast lost.